Hi, this is Andy Teach, host of Andy's Awesome Adventures, and welcome to Goa, India. Goa is on the west part of India. It is hot and humid. Do I look uncomfortable? I am uncomfortable. And I'm having a bad hair day, which is why I'm wearing the cap. Sorry for the shades, but it's quite sunny here. But let's get down to business. This video is called How Not to Get Sick in India to the Extreme. When I say to the extreme, I mean I'm very conservative when it comes to taking precautions. So I'm going to divide this video into 4 parts. The first part is vaccinations. The second part is mosquito-borne diseases. The third part is drinking water and other liquids. And the fourth part is food. Let's start with the vaccinations. I always say the more vaccinations that are required for a trip, the more exciting that trip's going to be. And India is no exception. So for starters, even if you never leave your home state or country, you should always have a tetanus shot, hepatitis A, and hepatitis B. If you step on a rusty nail, for example, you can get tetanus. And a tetanus shot lasts for 10 years. Everyone should get one. Hepatitis A and B are liver diseases. Hepatitis A is from contaminated water or food. You might hear in the United States, certain restaurants might have a hepatitis outbreak when a restaurant worker goes to the restroom, doesn't wash their hands properly, touches the food, you eat the food, you get sick. Hepatitis B is spread through bodily fluids like blood or semen, for example, unprotected sex. So I always get tetanus, hepatitis A, hepatitis B. Also, when I was much younger, most people in the United States, when they're infants, will get a polio vaccine, as well as MMR, measles, mumps, rubella. Now, what if you're not sure if you had these, or maybe you had these recently? You can ask your doctor for what's called a titers test, T-I-T-E-R-S. It's a blood test, and it can tell you if you have likely immunity to certain diseases. So I did that recently. Last year I had booster shots for hepatitis A and B. I got my tetanus shot last year. I'm still immune to polio as well as measles, mumps, rubella. So I'm good as far as those vaccinations are concerned. I also added typhoid vaccine. Typhoid is a disease you can get from contaminated water, for example. And like many of these diseases, they can be quite deadly. So I took the typhoid vaccine. If you get the shot, it lasts for 2 years. If you get the oral vaccine, it lasts for 5 years. Last time I got it was when I went to Vietnam 5 years ago. This time around, same thing. You take 4 pills, 1 every 2 days, lasts for 5 years. And what's interesting is that these pills have to be refrigerated. So when you get them from the pharmacy, they're probably going to be in some pouch that's cold. You get them home, you put them right in the refrigerator, and the instructions tell you that when you put them in your mouth, you need to swallow them immediately. So they're very temperature sensitive. Now, what other vaccines was I considering? One was cholera. Cholera is also a deadly disease. I decided not to get it because, first of all, I wasn't aware of going to any places where there's cholera outbreaks. Unless you're going to some rural area for a very long time, it's probably not worth getting. Also, from what I've seen and read, people who take the cholera vaccine, it's terrible taste. They have a hard time keeping it down. And one reason why I did not really want to get sick in India is because I have a 37 consecutive year streak of not barfing. And I wanted to keep that streak going until the day I die. So, I'm not sure I can keep down the cholera vaccine if I took it, and you have to get 2 of them within a few months. So I skipped the cholera vaccine. The other one I was looking to was rabies shot. Do I need a rabies shot? I knew I was going to 2 national parks for about 4 or 5 days with wild animals in an open air vehicle, and sure enough, we were surrounded by wild animals. You get rabies through either a bite or even a scratch from a wild animal if they have rabies. So I decided not to do that. I decided that if I do get bit, then I'll get my rabies shot. Now, what was surprising to me is in the national parks, yes, there was a bird that came into our Jeep and jumped on my hat, but no bites. But I was in the Jaisalmer fort, leaving the fort, and all of a sudden I see people staring up at a stairway, and there were like 50 bats just hanging like 10 feet from us. And there were 2 other stairways, the same thing. Now, bats are known for having rabies, but thankfully they stay where they are, I stay where I was, no problems. So if you want to check what's recommended or is required, you can go to the CDC, Center for Disease Control website, and they will tell you specifically for India what's required. Now, the next part is mosquito-borne diseases. You can get malaria, dengue fever, yellow fever, Japanese encephalitis. Now, there was a vaccine for Japanese encephalitis. I decided not to get it. I figured I'm just going to protect myself against all mosquito diseases with mosquito repellent. I use 100% DEET, D-E-E-T. It is very effective against mosquitoes. However, DEET is a chemical, it's a poison. I just read one thing where you should have a minimum of 30 DEET. I just read another article that says you should have a maximum of 30 DEET. It can cause seizures in a very small percentage of people. Do your research on it, but I've used 100% DEET for different trips. I've had no issues, thankfully. Now, the other thing about mosquito diseases, malaria. 20 years ago, when I first came to India, I took an anti-malarial drug called Lariam. 20% of people who take that drug have severe side effects. I was one of them. I was sick in bed for 3 days. Had nausea, hot flashes. It was the worst I ever felt in my life. Had 2 doctors visit me in my hotel room. Really couldn't do much. So I decided I'd rather have malaria than malaria pills. So this time around, I skipped the malaria pills. I'm not aware of being in any areas with malaria, but I'm not sure about that. So I used the 100% DEET pretty much every day, all over, just in case. Now, another area that's very important is the water. You probably heard never drink the water in India, and that is true. There are a lot of hotels that have, for example, filtered water. I don't care, I don't trust them. So number one, always drink bottled water, and when you unscrew it, make sure that the seal was sealed, the cap was sealed. Because there are some people, it doesn't happen too often, but some people just take tap water, put it in and sell it as bottled water. So you have to be careful about that. If you're in a nice hotel, you don't have to worry about it. When you brush your teeth, do not put your mouth under that faucet. Do not put your toothbrush under that faucet. Use bottled water to rinse. Use bottled water to clean the toothbrush. When you take a shower, keep your mouth closed. Yeah, shut your mouth, okay? That's very important. And try to keep it out of your eyes as well. No ice cubes. Ice cubes are water, of course. No salads, because salads are rinsed with water. So now the other things I've been drinking besides bottled water is Coke and Pepsi. That's it. Breakfast, give me a Coke. I decided not to have coffee or tea. Why? Because most of it is made out of water. Was it heated properly? Was it boiled properly? I don't know. Again, I'm being overly cautious. I've seen plenty of people drinking coffee and tea. I don't know if they have any issues or not, but I'm not taking the chance. Other things, let's talk about food. One thing you're not supposed to have is dairy products because they're non-pasteurized, which means there could be some germs in them. That means no cheese, that means no yogurt, that means no milk, that means no ice cream, that means no fun. Now, probably the #1 place where people get sick when it comes to food is street food. So I avoid all street foods. I don't care where it is, what it is. It's unfortunate because am I missing out on some great cultural experiences, some great food experiences? Of course I am. But I don't want to be sick in bed for 2 days because I ate some street food just to see what it was like. So some people will tell you they eat street food all the time, they have no problems, that's great. For me personally, I'm just not willing to take the chance. Now, I also brought with me some things as a precaution. So I brought some probiotics, which I've never used before. So I took it on the first day. It's supposed to help with your travel's diarrhea. And by the way, I'm doing this video because I have had no issues at all with my stomach on this trip or 20 years ago. So I do practice what I preach and hopefully it will be helpful to you. Anyways, probiotics, I took them the first day, then I totally forgot about them. So forget that. The next thing is I brought my own utensils. Why? Because when you go to a restaurant, you don't know if the utensils were just washed in tap water, if that was contaminated water or not. I totally forgot to use them. I've been using, the restaurant's silverware, no issues. Forget that. My friend recommended I get this Life Straw. Basically, you put it in water. It kills like 99.9% of the germs. So if you're in a stream or a river, you can actually use this to drink. It filters out everything. Never used it. I feel like I'm safe with my bottled water, so didn't use that one either. Oh yes, and here's my mosquito repellent that I'm using. And, hold on one second. I don't know if you can see it, the 100 there, 100% DEET. I brought 3 bottles of this to last me for a month. That's how long I'm gonna be here. And by the way, I've been in India for 2.5 weeks so far. I have another week to go. Then I'm going to Kathmandu. And as I said, so far, so good. So, these are the main things I think that will help you. But here's one more, very important. One reason people get upset stomachs is the spices. They're not used to it. So I would say absolutely, before you come to India, go to your local Indian restaurant and just eat a lot of Indian food. I happen to eat a lot of Indian food. I eat Indian TV dinners all the time, so my stomach is kind of prepared. What I would do is go to a restaurant, start with mild, and eat that a few times, then upgrade to medium, and then if you feel lucky, upgrade to spicy. And once your stomach gets a little used to the spices, it won't be as bad when you get to India. Now, the only other thing I would say is I avoided beef at all times. You don't find a lot of beef because India is basically a vegetarian country. But I wanted to have chicken. I had chicken last time I was here 20 years ago, but I waited about a week before I had it. I just didn't want to take any risks. But I've been eating chicken a lot, no issues. Now, I've been eating mostly at my hotels, which are 4- or 5-star hotels, and I read from people that say that they've gotten sick at 4- or 5-star hotels or resorts. But I do feel your odds are better if you do eat at better hotel restaurants. One of the reasons I've eaten at hotel restaurants is because a lot of times I'm in an isolated area, so I'm not even near anything. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't even know where to go unless you do your research ahead of time on TripAdvisor, let's say, to find out what these restaurants are like. It can be risky. There are restaurants and hotels that will have the name Palace in them. I've been to several rest stops along the way on the road that's something Palace. So Palace doesn't mean it's better. So you have to be careful about that. But anyway, I hope that what I've told you has been helpful, that maybe you learned a couple things. I know there's going to be a lot of people to comment on the video, which, by the way, please do, especially if you've been to India. Let me know what you've eaten, what you haven't eaten, the effect it's had on you. There are people going to say, Andy, I can do 10% of what you said, and I have no problems. That's great. As I said, I'm very conservative. I'm just very happy that my consecutive non-barfing streak has continued. I want to continue another week or so, and I'll be a happy man. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. And India really is incredible. India, it's maybe my favorite country out of 50 countries I've been to. And that's it from Goa, India. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.